I'm upset. I don't know if upset's the right word, but I'm a little perturbed, I guess you could say. It's I can't put my finger on it, but shit's bothering me about wrestling right now. Not about the product as a whole, because wrestling is probably at its apex, the best it's ever been, historically speaking. I mean, Attitude Era and everything. Like, this is the best wrestling has ever been. We have the deepest roster in the history of wrestling. There is talent galore, not just in WWE. The indie scene is unbelievable at the moment, and yet we still have wrestlers, legends from a bygone era, which is no offense to them, coming back. I say that because on Monday Night Raw, um, Shawn Michaels pretty much officially said, "I'm coming out of retirement to get into a tag team match. It's not a one-on-one match against somebody that he could put over for his like final match ever. No, it's The Undertaker and Kane. Again, I mean, Shawn kind of teased it leading on to Super Showdown, and by the way, that train wreck of a match, wasn't a fan of it at all. Um, Saying that the only reason he would come back is to beat The Undertaker, which is pretty much what he said. And I really don't like that at all. Here's Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, the Heartbreak Kid, the guy who probably put on for his final two star-studded matches, two of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, WrestleMania 25, um, long heralded as the greatest wrestling match ever. Okay, and now and then he had a part two with the Undertaker at WrestleMania 26, which was his default retirement match. Talking about a guy who retired Ric Flair. Well, was supposed to retire Ric Flair, and then he came back in TNA. You're talking about a guy who's had moment after moment after moment, especially at WrestleMania. Even in the losses, he looks good at WrestleMania. Talking about a guy whose career should have been over decades ago. He lost a smile. He pretty much tore up his back. He came back for a second run, and he had a crazy second run as a wrestler, winning the Elimination Chamber. I think the first one to win the Elimination Chamber at Madison Square Garden, win the championship, putting on matches against Cena, um, putting on matches against the newer talent, super kicking the absolute living fuck out of Shelton Benjamin that one time. And like he said in his promo when he first was talking about Super Showdown, he retired and stayed retired out of respect. And I know he said like respect for Taker and not respect for anything else, but I think it was respect for wrestling in general. When you retire, you're supposed to retire. That's it. You don't go back on your word. When you retire, you usually go out on your back. Think about it this way. We're in an era right now where, like I said, we have the deepest roster in WWE history. There's talent all over the place. It's not just, it's not like a promo for the Woo edition or anything like that. By the way, this game, absolutely fire. Um, it's not just a promotional thing. This is actually what the time we're living in. We're living in a time of the deepest roster, and yet a lot of our talent on the roster is getting pushed to the side because all these people want to come back. And there's a point where you just have to ask yourself, like, is this worth it? As a fan, do you want to keep seeing this nostalgia act? I mean, there are some exceptions to the rule. Daniel Bryan retired at the apex of his career and had to take 3 years off before he got cleared. That's a different story. But he came out of retirement for argument purposes. Kurt Angle um, didn't really retire, but he had that whole Vicodin thing, and so he came back and wrestled, and now he's wrestling again in Saudi Arabia. You have Taker, who, for all intents and purposes, looked like he pretty much retired at WrestleMania 33. People were crying. People left that stadium at WrestleMania in sheer silence. I was there, and a couple years later, he just came back, or a year later, he came back, and now he's wrestling more than ever at age 50, which I get it, but like for someone like Shawn, for someone even like Taker, what more else do you have to prove? And especially with Taker being a traditionalist, you always going on your back, but now you're coming back and back and back. And Shawn went out on his back. He lost his final match like he was supposed to, as tradition tells you. But I feel like Shawn and even Taker and a bunch of other people in what I'm going to be deeming the unretirement era at this point is, when is enough enough? What more do you have to prove? What do you need to do for your own legacy? These are two of the greatest wrestlers of all time. People we all grow up. People who are larger than life figures. And I get they still love wrestling. Wrestling's their passion. But what more else do you have to prove? The only way I can see them potentially coming back is if they were to put somebody over. Shawn versus AJ would be great. But even Shawn turned that down because he said he can't go at the rate that he wants to go. So instead, Shawn's going to face Taker, who can't go at the rate he's supposed to go. And Taker's going to have Kane, who can't go at the rate that he's used to be able to go to, and Shawn's tag partner is going to be Triple H, who probably out of all four of them is the best wrestler, is the most consistent wrestler right now. But even then, he still can't go at the rate he's supposed to go. And now you have a clusterfuck and a train wreck going back into Saudi Arabia. Now, I also understand that there are other forces in play here. There's a lot of money that got thrown their way, and I get it, but at some point, don't you got to say enough of the money? Like, money doesn't matter right now. This is your legacy. This is going to live on far past your money. It's to bring it to a sports reference. It's like when Jordan came back to out of retirement. For the Washington Wizards. Like it was like, all right, cool, Jordan's back, but why? What more else did you have to do? I mean, he had to score 30,000 points and be like the third all-time scorer in NBA history. However, but there was nothing else left for Jordan to prove, and it just became one of those things that was just kind of a train wreck and an afterthought. And it wasn't nice. It's like Joe Montana going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, it was cool and all, but you don't remember Joe Montana for the Kansas City Chiefs. You don't remember Michael Jordan for the Washington Wizards. I'm not going to remember Shawn Michaels for this 2-match Saudi Arabian Super Showdown, whatever the fuck this is. 10 years after. I'm not going to remember them for that. I'm going to remember them for the Heartbreak Kid, for the guy who did, who did the light versus the darkness, the good versus the evil, in a classic match, and the greatest WrestleMania match, and potentially the greatest wrestling match of all time. In my opinion, this is not worth it. You see this beautiful belt? As beautiful as this belt is, you don't see this belt coming out of retirement anytime soon. You move on. And that's hard. I know it's hard. I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist in real life. I've studied psychology for years, and I know how hard it is for the human condition to move on. But at some point, you have to tell yourself, are you doing your profession and the thing you love? Are you doing more harm than help for it? Are you helping them by coming back and putting on train wreck after train wreck after train wreck? Or are you hurting them in the long run? So that's what I got for today, folks. This is Watch the Throne. I mean, by the way, there's also Evolution coming up, and I really feel like we should be focusing on Taker and Michaels and Kane and DX and everything coming back. I feel like we should be focusing on the women, but if you're not going to focus on the women, I'm going to focus on the women, because why the fuck not? Anywho, so Evolution's coming up. Me and the rest of my co-hosts at King's Rings Podcast and Ram with Dan are going to do a tailgate outside of Nassau Coliseum a couple of hours before the event. $5 donation, food and drinks provided, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. We are also selling some great Warrior Pink t-shirts. All proceeds from most sales will go to breast cancer research. All donations, anybody who pays at the tailgate, all those proceeds will also go to breast cancer research. We will also be accepting other donations of any amount in which you prefer. And I'm looking to see you guys all there in a couple of weeks. But until then, my name is King Rickie Rose of Kings of the Rings Podcast. This has been Watch the Throne.
I think I'm cute. I know I'm